Welcome to PhoneRadar. This is Chetan and this is the video where we are going to do a few benchmark tests of the Yureka smartphone. Yureka, coming from the U brand, comes with a 5.5-inch 720p display and the Snapdragon 615 processor, an octa-core chipset with the 64-bit architecture. So that is said to be one of the best in this range of price. So the Redmi Note 4G that's lying behind that is powered by a Snapdragon 400 chipset, while there's one more contender in this category, that's the Lenovo A6000 that's coming with the Snapdragon 410 chipset, while still the Yureka claims to be one of the fastest and a better powered smartphone. So we'll do the general benchmark test and at least check out how well do the numbers claim to be. Although we won't be directly vouching for the performance because that is what we'll do later on. Right now let's check out with the benchmark test. First one is the Antutu benchmark. So with the benchmark scoring, the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G and 3G were quite surprising because the 3G variant had 32,448 points while the 4G one came up with 21,040 points. That was quite lower on the 4G variant. Again, the benchmark scores are based on the number of cores in the processor and the clocking speed along with the other factors. So that is where might be the 3G variant got the highest score because of the octa-core chipset that it has got, the MediaTek MT6592. While the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G has the Snapdragon 400, the quad-core chipset. So we'll get to know how well the score of Antutu benchmark in the Yureka smartphone would be, and later on, based on that, we might come up with a conclusion. So the test is completed. The score the Yureka has got is 31,666. That is quite comparable to what the Xiaomi Redmi Note 3G had got, 32,448. Let's get into the details. It's multitasking, getting quite a lot of score, and even the 2D and 3D graphics. The 3D graphic loading score was very high, and the storage and database I/O usually gets about 1000 to 1500. That is where it's a bit lower than normal. So this is the scoring Yureka has got, quite comparable to again LG G3 which had a bit higher score, and the HTC One M7 has lower than this. So that's with the Antutu benchmark. Now coming up to the next benchmark, that's the quadrant standard. So here's the results. It's 17,697 that the quadrant standard benchmark test gives up for the Yureka smartphone, and this is a bit higher than what the Xiaomi Redmi Note 3G had got. It had 16,421 while this one has 17,697. So with this, again, no doubts, one of the good powered devices when you talk of the benchmark numbers. The third one and the last one is the Velamo benchmark testing, where we are going to test the multi-core test, and we'll be doing the metal and the browser scores later on because this has a universe browser, that's a browser from Opera and not a Google Chrome browser or the standard one. So we won't be doing much of the stuff here. This is the standard Velamo multi-core benchmark test, and this is where the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G had a pretty low score of 776 points. So we'll get to check the score of this one and then we can compare. So the score that Yureka smartphone gets here is 1201 compared to 776 of the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G. Again, quite a high score, but again not one of the best scores, because you get the Nexus 4 having even a better score than this one, and Motorola Moto G had a score better than this. So with the Velamo multi-core testing, it isn't a great score, but still better than its main competitor, that's the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G. So for a quick comparison between the two major smartphone competitors here, that's the Yureka and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G. This one comes with the Snapdragon 615 processor, the octa-core chipset with the 64-bit architecture. This has a Snapdragon 400, the quad-core chipset with 32-bit architecture. Both have 2 GB of RAM, but the Yureka has Adreno 405 GPU, while the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G has Adreno 305 GPU. So that is these are a few parts where you can still consider that is the reason why Yureka has got a better score in the benchmark scores, and again why the Xiaomi Redmi Note 3G had a better score than the 4G one. So the test won't end here. We'll be doing some manual testing and then check out how well does both the smartphones play games when compared side by side, and then that is when we can understand whether the Yureka performs better than the Redmi Note 4G or not. So this was the benchmark scores of the Yureka smartphone. Keep a check on the PhoneRadar channel for the other videos, and we will be coming up with the camera review and the final review of the Yureka very soon. Thank you.